we've been doing it. This is just like a continuous evolution. When I talk about integrated, that's what I mean. It's very much been like we're kind of front and center at the beginning of that process to make sure that kind of anything we're doing is built for the media plan.
Claire, I am very excited to have you here today.
Thank you.
We'll be talking, the title of this podcast is GOAT x WPP, Strengthening the Influence Engine from Inside the Machine. Claire, if you could just a quick intro, your name, your role, maybe a fun fact as well.
Oh no, a fun fact. I forgot to prep one. So I'm Claire Morris. Oh my God, sorry, I keep looking at the camera. Claire Morris, I'm Group Solutions Lead at GOAT Agency. And a fun fact, oh my goodness. I mean, I had dinner with Rob Mayhew the other night. I feel like for this week, that's my fun fact.
That is the week made already. I love that. I love that. Shout out Rob Mayhew, you're a legend. We will be talking about quite a few things today. Thematically, but so how GOAT operating inside WPP is evolving from this high growth agency to a global infrastructure. We'll talk about navigating complexity, driving adoption across media agencies, and how proving influence is a core lever of long-term brand and business growth is important. We've got 4 sections. I also got a lovely big intro because I feel like you are an unsung hero and people like you need to be given space to be celebrated.
I'll take that.
The 4 parts, one is from INCA to GOAT, the inside transformation. I'd love to unpack that. Part 2, we've got 1 + 1 = 3, aligning media, creative, and influence and bringing those all together. And it's something I also really want to give space to, and something that's always amazed me about GOAT itself is their energy. It really is cult-like. Like they've got this incredible culture. That's what I wanted to talk about, from the cult energy to a serious global scale. And then part 4 will be the WPP Media and the future of influence. Are you ready?
Sounds really good.
Yeah? Awesome. So, Claire, you sit at the core of one of the most complex and high potential transformations in the industry. Claire leads engagement from GOAT within the WPP Media, formerly Group M. Maybe you can touch on that as well, that'd be quite cool. Scaling its value across the media powerhouses like MediaShare, Wavemaker, and Essence Mediacom. You're looking to, and your job is to ensure that GOAT becomes not just a service provider, but very much a critical layer in that operating system of WPP Media. You're focusing on removing friction, accelerating adoption, enabling long-term client success. Your work also strengthens how WPP Media partners with WPP's creative agencies like Ogilvy to deliver integrated 1 + 1 = 3 thinking that brands crave. So it's not just within, but there's multiple factors to be thinking about there, which really is quite complex. And you ensure that when brands work with creators, they can work with media and brand, and that all of that with strategy comes together within a place where the result is greater than the sum of its parts. Now, you've also had a real journey yourself. You've launched influencer solutions within Publicis. You've built INCA inside Group M. That's now shaped GOAT's integrations at scale as well. You're a system thinker, a true system thinker, an architect, and you drive adoption of architectures as well. This conversation will be about navigating scale, it'll be about proving value and how to build a platform that delivers for creators, clients, and internal teams alike. Are you ready?
Yes. I mean, I sound great, thank you.
Very much deserving, very much deserving. Part 1, from INCA to GOAT, the inside transformation. So you led INCA alongside legend Paul Scannell before it merged with GOAT. And since then, the team has more than doubled the global scale and has grown, and expectations have evolved as well within that. I'd love you to tell us a bit about what that transformation was like. What were the biggest mindset and operational shifts? What did GOAT gain from INCA and vice versa? What did INCA gain from GOAT? And what has that combined entity unlocked for clients and all your partners?
Yeah, that's a really big question. I think it's really interesting. I think in terms of the transition, sort of after the acquisition of GOAT, I think when we're sort of thinking about like the mindsets that were coming together and sort of like what that looked like, I think both entities, INCA and GOAT, were coming at it from like a very entrepreneurial mindset. I think from INCA's perspective, it was like within its relative infancy within Group M. It only like, I think it was only like 3 or 4 years old. So kind of that entrepreneurial mindset to kind of be like, we're quite scrappy, like we're kind of being quite agile within the Group M ecosystem. And kind of that side of things, like they brought to the table, like INCA brought to the table, sort of knowledge of how to operate within media agencies and like a bigger holdco. I think people underestimate like the politics behind that, kind of the some of the systemic barriers to adoption, and kind of how you navigate that. So I think from INCA's perspective, like they were coming from that angle, and then from GOAT, like kind of we've just seen them come in and like be this absolute driving force in terms of bringing all of their like passion and enthusiasm and tenacity and kind of their sort of almost decade-long experience of like growing brands and kind of growing growing the influencer space essentially. So both coming at it from like quite an entrepreneurial mindset. So it's been really interesting to kind of see that interplay between the two. And in terms of how that then sits within WPP Media, what was Group M, it's an interesting one because I think whilst, you know, the likes of Publicis have purchased Influential, you've got kind of like other entities like Creo for Omnicom, like mostly in the US, like actually where we're at right now with WPP Media and GOAT, we're still the only entity that is like a truly integrated influencer entity within a holdco, especially within the UK and like a lot of other global markets. So it's an interesting one because it's kind of like we've got this really unique opportunity to showcase to clients how should you be integrating influencer marketing into your like wider media plans. And I think that's kind of that's the journey we've been on for like the last 2.5 years, like sort of bringing all of INCA's expertise and how to navigate that, and then GOAT's expertise and just coming in and like really shaking things up.
Could you, for the audience, explain what it means to be integrated? So I remember when I first heard that was coming about, especially as the industry's, you know, rising more into mainstream, being agency of records and so forth is becoming a thing. That name, that term came around a lot, and it didn't make sense to me straight away off the bat.
Yeah, I think for me, like integrated is sort of thinking about, like when I talk about integrated, it's sort of thinking about how we sort of utilise the position of GOAT within WPP to like really position influencers as a built in, not bolt on to a media plan. I think historically, just because it's in its infancy, like relative infancy compared to other media channels, influencer marketing is something that's like a nice to have, like once the rest of the media planning has happened. Whereas like having kind of GOAT positioned, you know, actually like inside the organisation, it allows us to kind of build out those processes, those ways of working. That means that kind of when we are doing like upfront media planning, we can kind of build the content planning into that. It's not historically something that you do, like media planners are responsible for. They're not like typically responsible for like the creative production. So it's kind of like how we adapt those processes and those ways of working to make sure that we're kind of doing content planning and media planning at the same time, so that kind of content can be produced based on the needs of the media plan. So it means that from a like a cost efficiency perspective, from a cost effectiveness perspective, like every single piece of content is built that kind of feeds into a very specific part of it. It means that kind of, you know, we're only negotiating rights where we know that they're going to be used. We're only sort of like developing content specific to particular platforms we know they're going to be used for. So when I talk about integrated, that's what I mean. It's very much being like we're kind of front and centre at the beginning of that process to make sure that kind of anything we're doing is built for the media plan.
And that's very beneficial from many lenses. Like, it obviously, influence marketing works. We see that. Brands now get to have that at the forefront. They can bring that in from the get-go and make sure the strategy is in harmony with that.
Exactly.
And that bolt-on wouldn't necessarily always complement that, enable that. But second to that, also, it unlocks much bigger scale, much bigger budgets, which allow you to deliver much more value off the back of that as well.
And do more creative, exciting work as well, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the other part of it. It's like, you know, when it is a bolt-on to the media plan, it's kind of like, oh, we'll just kind of throw you this extra bit of budget that we found down the back of the sofa, and it's not necessarily, doesn't necessarily enable for the best work to kind of facilitate like the overall campaign objective.
Yeah. I mean, it's really quite remarkable. So first, I'm just watching the growth of Go and also seeing INCA come to fruition. I think when Go was acquired by WPP, their team was maybe 200 or so in size, which already was incredible scale, like pace from the short time that they had been operating up until then. So now you guys are a team of what, 600 people globally?
Yeah. I think it's in like 36 like languages, 28 markets.
I think that really speaks to that harmony of you guys coming together, both having that alignment of entrepreneurial thinking, INCA understanding how to operate within an organization like WPP, and then Go just having that tenacity to push really hard and grow faster. That's really incredible. On that theme, 1 + 1 = 3. It's very, by the way, it's a big part of the DNA of ThisThat. We believe that you bring different schools of thought together, you can expand the world of thinking. I've got a mathematics degree, but I do believe that 1 + 1 = 3. So, I want to talk a bit about aligning media, creative, and influence. How does Go now work across Mindshare, Wavemaker, and SSMediacom? I'd love to give that plenty of space. And also I'm curious about what does great collaboration with the likes of Ogilvy look like? Because they're also a very big entity, a powerhouse within the WPP holding group. And you can have this sort of media, creative, there could be natural tensions within that. I wonder what those friction points are, and I imagine it'd be a big part of your role is trying to solve that and bring those together as well.
Oh, that's a really good question. I think in terms of how we work, kind of the ecosystem content planning that I've talked about is just really important. That's something that we've really been driving within each of the operating companies, each of the agencies.
Could you maybe tell us a bit about like Mindshare, Wavemaker, SSMediacom, like what makes them distinct, and then how do you come together?
That's a really good question. I think, I mean, if you don't mind, I'm going to not answer your question, but like I'm going to answer it from a slightly different approach based off of like all of the stuff that's been going on with WPP Media and kind of some of the announcements that have come out. I think where historically, like it might be each of the different media agencies have a slightly different approach to planning. They've kind of got their own like little ethoses or kind of different USPs where they talk to clients about the way that they approach it. I think with the recent announcements from that come out from Brian Lesser in terms of how WPP Media is trying to like bring itself into like one single entity and kind of remove some of those barriers between the agencies, I think it makes it quite interesting sort of when we're looking forward in terms of that interplay between GOAT and the agencies themselves. So as part of the WPP Media consolidation, we've got WPP Open, which is like the AI-driven tech that we kind of use to do all of our like media planning and buying. And so to that point, where we're sort of thinking about how GOAT works with the agencies, it's going to be less about like individual agencies and how we're approaching kind of tasks and strategy and kind of collaboration with them, and more, it makes it really exciting because it means it's more about like how GOAT integrates into the WPP Open tech stack and kind of like is an absolute, what's the word I'm looking for? Like there's absolutely no plan in which GOAT won't be sort of considered, and especially when we think about the WPP next year report that came out last week that kind of talks about how, UGC content is already overtaken like professionally produced content. Sort of, I think there was a stat in there that is just completely escaping me now about like just how many billions of like influencer content generated revenue kind of is going to grow in the next 5 years. So I think when we think about it in terms of GOAT's interplay into that ecosystem, this new world for WPP is super exciting because it's just like influencer content and user-generated content, creator content is all like absolutely at the heart of that sort of like planning and buying process.
I love how you flipped the answer and brought that's the absolute right thing to do. And so would it be fair to say rather than find ways for them to work independently and bring them together in a 1 + 1 = 3 sense, it's actually building a one operating system.
Yeah.
And it's not even 1 + 1 = 3, it is we are in harmony, we are in sync.
100%. Yeah, and it's utilising all of the data, like all of the data that Open Intelligence as part of WPP Open brings. And like really being able to demonstrate to clients in a really sort of agile way exactly what channels need to fit within their media plan, of which influencer will be an absolute core component.
I loved how you answered that question by flipping it rather than saying what the 1 + 1 = 3 is, of them being individual components and then somehow coming together. It's actually, they are coming together as one operating system.
Yeah.
More in harmony, more in sync, running the same direction.
That's absolutely it. And I think with WPP Open, it allows us to be a core component of what any of the agencies are doing in terms of their media planning and buying. And we've got kind of open intelligence that sits underneath that kind of data and AI layer. And that's what feeds into it. So for clients, it's a really agile way of us showing we've got all of the data, we've kind of, processed it, and computer says this is kind of the best way of kind of building out your plan. So yeah, I think it is a really exciting time.
I can't wait to see how that unfolds, and because I feel like Goat have a very clear, compelling proposition, and then whether that proposition evolves as it becomes this. Is there anything you can touch on at all?
Oh, I mean, I think it'll be interesting. I think at the moment, kind of WPP Open has just launched. I think I literally just came over here from a session where Brian Lesser was taking all of our kind of key clients through it over on the WPP beach. And so I think it's still very much a case of we've been doing it. This is just a continuous evolution of what that looks like. And so I'll kind of personally as well, I'll be really interested to see sort of how bring all of that data to the fore, bringing AI to the fore, and kind of utilising that. It'd be really interesting to see how it shapes. We at Goat know what our kind of forward-facing motion looks like, and it's kind of then how we sort of utilise what comes out of this new kind of an evolved planning process and kind of adapt accordingly. And I think to be honest, since I joined Group M back in 2022, that's kind of you have to be able to adapt really quickly. You have to be super agile, and I think that's what sometimes is a bit of a misconception about holding companies, is that everything moves really slowly, but actually everything moves really quickly, and you have to be able to be you can't just sit back and go, well, this is the way we've always done it. You have to actually have the right skill sets, the right personalities, kind of the right people in the business to go, no, there's absolutely no point us keep moving in this direction, because actually this thing over here is just launched and is evolving, and we kind of need to be able to think on the fly about, well, what does that mean to us? How do we make sure that for every single campaign, for every single client interaction, that we are delivering them the absolute best version of what we could?
I think that links really neatly to the next topic. I want to maybe give some bit of space to Alex has now stepped into his role, which we'll unpack in a second, and set a vision for where that goes forward to. I've got quite a bit of things to say about Goat. I mean, I really think it's a remarkable team, and so I want to give it the space that I feel like it deserves. Yeah. This is going from cotton energy to serious global scale. So a bit of history. Goat was built by Aaron, Harry, and Nick. Was founded by them, with serious speed, sharp focus, and a team that truly operate the intensity of a Navy SEAL unit. From the start, they didn't just execute, they truly believed. They radiate pride like no other. They've got really strong retention that also speaks to that. They've been named the fastest growing agency in Europe by Adweek, Social Media Agency of the Year by The Drum, Top Company by LinkedIn. I had the pleasure to hang out with Aaron not that long ago, and I asked him, it's just not only scaled rapidly, but also been beautifully profitable in that as well, on that journey. I asked him what's the one thing that truly drove Goat's success? And he said it with one word, and he didn't shy away from it at all, and he used the word cult. And that's a word that other people would potentially want to shy away from, or there's different connotations, but he was so proud when he said that, which was quite magnetic, just hearing him say that too. And he followed on from that with, for a decade, the team have been rallying around one problem statement and one solution statement. And that was that 80% of influencer marketing is wasted. We were the first to guarantee results. And they were the first to have that courage and the discipline to execute in that and always deliver better and better and better. It was that certainty that clients craved, and they made that happen. That was their edge. One of the earliest believers at Goat, Alex Burgess, joined in 2017 as a client lead, but just 2 years later, in that true entrepreneurial spirit, already launched the APAC region as well. He's widely respected, deeply loved in the ecosystem and within Goat definitely as well. Undoubtedly will nurture that essence of what made Goat what it is in this next era that he'll be leading. He's now stepped into the global president role. So from that part of from cult energy to serious global scale, I wonder from your point of view, what founding traits still show up in Goat's culture today? And in your word, what makes Alex the best person to lead this next chapter?
I mean, I think you really hit the nail on the head. I think he's extremely well liked within the business. He's extremely well respected by anyone at Goat. And I think like that plays a massive part. So I completely understand why Aaron would have used that word, because he's bringing everybody on the journey with him, right? And I think kind of when he stepped into the role in the last few weeks, he's kind of set like this vision forward for the agency, and everyone's bought into it because they kind of know him, they believe in him, and they kind of believe that he knows what it will take to kind of continue to drive the agency forward. In terms of how we then look at how that develops global scale, like to be honest, I think, we've touched on it, like the beauty of Goat is that kind of they do understand how to build at speed and grow at speed. And I think being able to bring that into WPP Media and really shake things up, I think is going to be his absolute superpower.
It goes to the title, right? Strengthen the influence engine from within inside the machine.
Absolutely.
Systems design thinker. How are you thinking about approaching systems and that you're designing that work within WPP Media, but also allow this DNA to flourish? Maybe there's a 1 + 1 = 3 that we can find within that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends what we kind of mean by when we're talking about systems. I think, from if we're thinking about systems as technology, I think WPP Open does that for us, and kind of, we've got an amazing platform to be able to do that. But in terms of systems, with regards to how we kind of show up, within our media agency partners and kind of how we work kind of collaboratively with their teams, I think it really speaks to, Goat's sort of legacy, which is people buy from people, right? And kind of Goat are always really focused on that in terms of how they build their relationships and kind of move within ecosystems for that. When we think about influencer as a bolt-on, because it was always seen as a bolt-on prior to kind of Goat's kind of merge into WPP, it means that there was always lots of different entities that wanted to lay claim to it, right? So whether you've got creative agencies, PR agencies, influencer agencies, in-house influencer teams in some cases. So I think from that perspective, knowing how influencer marketing has evolved thanks to the power of creative and kind of the acknowledgement of that within media, kind of its performance credibility within the media landscape as well. When we're building out systems, it's kind of we've done a lot of that work already, being able to prove, working with partners like yourselves, being able to prove the value of influencer marketing. So then when we're navigating within the ecosystem of WPP, not just the media agencies, but creative as well, we can kind of factor that in and be right, influencer is acknowledged as a media channel. So therefore the swim lanes become really clear and easy to navigate. So then when we're kind of working with creative agencies, it's right, you've got a really clear task here in terms of how you integrate with Goat. Goat kind of have a very clear task in terms of being able to use all of our historical performance data to showcase how that would work within a media environment. And then the agencies have the ability to then go and buy that media. So I kind of think, in terms of a system, we've got the tech, and then we've also got, the acknowledgement of influencer as a high performing media channel that allows us to kind of put those processes and ways of working in place.
When you touched on the different components of that, you said Goat have a very clear role and a clear ask. You said that different elements within the WPP will have clear roles and clear asks.
Yes.
what is that clear role and that clear ask? Is that a brief in that ask? And then
I mean, I think there's multiple ways of coming at this. I think like part of it is like further upstream than a brief. It is making sure that the media kind of client leads, planning leads actually understand like why influencer marketing should be part of their plan, and WPP Open will assist with that now, kind of alongside our support, with our support. But then there's also an element of like inspiration and just being like, how do we actually sort of like start to really build excitement with clients about kind of what influencer marketing could afford them in terms of answering their challenges and their objectives for any given kind of year when we're looking at like an annual media plan, for example. And kind of once you've got those bits in play and you've kind of done that education, you've done that inspiration, yes, then we have like extremely clear processes around like how we're briefed by the agencies. But I think until you actually make sure that you've done that education, that inspiration bit up front, it means that the brief can then live as a brief and you're not having to do all those dual roles at the same time.
could you walk us through just like what is that, like the very first day when, let's say, WPP are courting a brand?
Yep.
From there all the way through to go operating at scale with them, what are the different steps? What does that look like?
That's a really good question. So I'm kind of working on something at the moment, actually, like where Mindshare have just onboarded like a new client in the last few months. And so like I'm working really closely with the teams there to say, okay, like, you know, that the client's aware of all of WPP Media's capabilities. They are aware of GOAT. They know like broad brushstrokes, what we're about, what we do, like. So it's kind of like, what's the next step? It can't just be, well, they know about it and therefore we receive briefs. That's just that kind of, there's so many steps missing within that. So at the moment, I'm working closely with those kind of client and planning leads to be like how do we actually excite them about, you know, what the prospects are for them within influencer marketing. So it might be that we run sort of very specific client inspiration sessions where we're like, this is what's going on within the influencer space in your particular vertical. These are the kinds of ways that different brands are showing up. These are kind of what's trending, and just really give them a bit of a view of how could you show up here? How could you be culturally relevant? How could you use kind of influencer creative to really supercharge like what the rest of your media plan is doing? And then typically it will kind of move on in a bit of like an exploratory style to be like to kind of stimulate those briefs and kind of make sure that when we are being briefed, it's a brief that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so we'll typically work with them in that fashion. We'll work very closely with the teams when they're kind of doing like and kind of putting together the media plan and kind of how that's going to execute to make sure that, as I say, like where we're looking at like ecosystem content planning, that, you know, they factored kind of the creative element into that and kind of how influencers and creators can help them kind of provide that. And then we'll typically move through to a brief. We'll work with them really collaboratively on how influencers could answer that brief, kind of answer those particular challenges. And then from there, it's kind of like we fly. Because it's just a case of, as you say, like we're providing them with certainty, like we're positioning influencers as a media channel with, you know, some very specific performance elements out the back of that. And so once you start kind of on that journey, you started proving the value of it. You know, we work with them really closely in terms of running MMMs. We work really closely with them in terms of lift studies, etc., so that we can, you know, continuously demonstrate the value of it. And then it's a no-brainer in terms of how it scales, because you've kind of given them all of the tools, all of the information they need. Kind of WPP Open is surfacing all of that data and, you know, acknowledging within the wider media plan the value of the channel. And then obviously because we've got the global scale afforded to us by WPP, like, you know, then a client can kind of take that into any given market and we can execute in any given market. So yeah, does that answer the question?
It absolutely does, and beyond. I love how you integrate inspiration within those systems, because there's a lot of enablement that needs to happen along that. Like just understanding how to use influencer at scale can be complex, but then understanding how that sits within the wider ecosystem of the other channels within marketing.
And it's a sexy channel. Like we kind of, you need to like, let's acknowledge this. Like I think it's something that people want to talk about. They want to hear about it. Like it's not like we're going, oh, this is how you can like buy some programmatic. It's dull. Like influencer marketing is a really exciting media channel. And I think we've got the responsibility to kind of take clients on that journey.
Yes, and it is that. I mean, 100%. I love that you brought that energy to this, and that also just speaks to Go. Like, it's just wonderful. The thing that stuck to me was this like sense of co-creation.
Yeah.
Because you give them that, and then they can sort of digest, and when they start briefing you, they have that context now, and they also really see you as the experts, and they can collaborate way more together.
Yeah.
They've had a chance to put forward their thoughts. There's a chance. Does the sound all good? Yeah. The sound's been quite interesting on this one. They had a chance to digest, to brief properly. You had a chance to inspire them. There's a chance for co-creation. There's a chance for enablement. It all goes through in a real process that also builds trust, that gives you room to experiment and keep moving in the fun, sexy world of influence marketing. I want to move to forward thinking somewhat. Yes. Part 4, we've got WPP Media and the future of influence. We've touched on this at different parts so far, but I'd like to give a bit of focus on this one now. So WP recently rebranded Group M to WPP Media. That shift, as you said, signals this deeper integration across media, performance, and the platforms within as well. If we could go quite specifically into what this evolution means for GOAT's role going forward, and more particularly within that, what does it take to make influence not just a service, but a core layer of the operating model within WPP?
Yeah, and I think this comes back to a lot of what we've been talking about, kind of with some of the previous questions around like demonstrating its value. And I think, again, because it is in such infancy, like it's our responsibility to make sure that that's extremely clear. And I think what we've seen, and even kind of in Cannes, like a lot of the conversations I've been having while I'm here and a lot of the talks I've seen have been extremely creator-led. So I don't think this is necessarily just about how WPP integrates that in. It's more just like how the wider industry, isn't just, it's not all of these like viral kind of like, clickbait types of conversations about, oh, well, like influencer marketing is going to blow up, or like, influencer marketing's like on a real growth trajectory. Like, we're already here. And I think that's what WPP Media is really acknowledging with all of, its tech stack, its kind of approach to, how we utilize AI and our open intelligence solution to drive kind of our media planning and buying. Like, we've already acknowledged it. And I think kind of, it's our responsibility to make sure now that kind of we live and breathe it kind of on a day-to-day basis. And I think, a lot of the conversations we're having, like, clients are aware of it. They want to talk about it. So I think, we've set ourselves up for success structurally, and we've set ourselves up for success in terms of, like, the research and measurement and data that we've kind of put into demonstrating, how powerful influencers are as a media channel. And then that just means that, everything that we do on a day-to-day basis is so much easier because that structure and kind of that thought leadership already exists.
I love that. So it's more of the same and just keep that momentum going.
Absolutely. Yeah, because I think like we're not having to do the same level of education. Like, we're not having to, justify kind of our place on the media plan. So it then means that like we can just get on with, doing the do and delivering some amazing campaigns, and then like growth begets growth.
Definitely, Cannes is a very special place in the year for setting the tone of what the focus is for the next year.
Yeah.
And 2 years ago, creator marketing, influence marketing was becoming quite exciting. It was a bit of more and more of the talk track. Last year, it absolutely dominated the space. It felt much more like a creator festival than just Cannes Lion and everything else. And this year, the attitude has been much more of if you're not doing it, what are you even doing?
You're already behind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the conversations have been much more about how to operate at scale, which is why I was really excited about this conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you for enlightening us on those systems. Are you ready for some rapid fire
Yes.
or that questions?
Let's do it.
Okay. Conversion or community?
Community, because then you get conversion off the back of it.
Love it. Love it. Community strategy or media plan?
I mean, media plan. I've been 20 years in media. I'm going to say media plan.
Campaign or program?
Program.
Why?
Because I think campaigns sit within a program, and programs are the only way that you're going to drive scale.
Love that. Creator-led brand or brand-led creator?
Creator-led brand.
Nice. Reach or relevance?
I don't think I can choose one or the other. I think it absolutely has to be both. And I think that's the beauty of influencer marketing, is like you can kind of, generate reach with relevant content.
Yes, 100%. That's the virality, that ripple effect that you can have with community marketing and influence marketing. Sales or advocacy?
I think it has to start with advocacy. And I think that's kind of how we drive sales, and that's absolutely how we always talk about it, in terms of you can't just drive sales. You have to kind of do all of your homework and show your formulas and show your working out up front.
I love that you say that you have to start with advocacy. Something that we've always strived to do. When we entered the space, we were able to offer data that actually proved the impact of influencer. But we've always strived to be faster and more strategic than anyone else as well. We have offerings where we can give you brand lift results in hours, which is effectively real time. And we've got clients, including yourselves, optimizing performance using brand data.
Yeah.
Which really just debunks this idea that performance marketing and brand marketing is two different worlds.
Yes,
they can very much come together.
And I think that's the beauty. That is absolutely the beauty of influencer marketing. You're bringing them both together, and you can be really agile in the way that you do it.
Yes. We had Chris Robinson from your team on the panel just a few weeks ago. Actually, the panel was called Measure Brand Like Performance. And he was able to touch on that. And it's something I've admired in Chris from early on, is his appreciation of the importance of brand.
Yeah.
It speaks a lot to someone that is spearheading paid media at Goat, that can then really give that love to brand as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
AI optimized or human curated?
I mean, maybe I'm just showing my age here. I think human curated is like, that's kind of the whole point of creator marketing, right? It's like human to human advertising. But I do think there's a role to play in using AI in order to like speed things up, right? And I think we've obviously, launched or like announced a couple of days ago about kind of our integration with TikTok Symphony for WPPs. But I think it's just, AI is absolutely like the way forward. Like we can't ignore it, but I do think there's still an element of acknowledging where the human touch has to exist 100%. To make it effective.
It's there to empower them to
exactly
just do their best work at scale.
Yeah.
Insight or instinct?
Insight. Oh, that's just my media hat talking there.
Being first or being best?
First.
ROAS or Robbie? Robbie's return of brand investment.
But like, I think this comes back to, again, like the kind of advocacy versus sales. Like, I think you can't just measure one. And so I think you have to look at it very holistically. And I think that's the beauty of sitting within a media organization, is that you have all of that data at your fingertips.
You touched on these two earlier. Brand lift or MMM?
Both. I'm all for the data, like insights data, like intelligence. Like I just think, again, like this is where it's so exciting for Goat to sit within WPP, is that you have all of this at your fingertips. Like you can't, it's not just like a, suck it and see, or like, finger in the air estimation. Like you can absolutely have all of this data. You can like, it's at your fingertips within like our AI system. So yeah, I think I can't.
This one's a special one for this one. First 10 years of Goat or the next 10 years
next
of Goat?
10 years, absolutely. No, and I think, we've been talking about it. Like there's so much, like so many exciting things on the horizon. And I feel like, yes, kind of Goat's been integrated for the last couple of years, but like we're just getting started.
Yeah, love it. Claire, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so very much.
Yeah, absolutely.